The 7 stages of grief is what I will be talking about. First, I would like to say this Chinese proverb that I read that correlates really well with grief. It says, "You cannot prevent the birds of sorrow from flying over your head, but you can prevent them from building nests in your hair." Why did I choose this? Because unfortunately, grief is something that is brought upon us that we don't ask for all the time, and something we're forced to go through and deal with. And how we deal with it is what makes us as a person. So even though we're forced to deal with things like grief at times, we don't want that, and obviously nobody wants that, we can learn how to deal with what we've been handed. So, first stage in grief, shock and denial. Shock and denial is basically the stage of why. You can't believe this happened. Is this real life? That's a real stage where you cannot believe this is going on. And you're in denial. You don't want to believe this is going on because you don't want to feel that hurt. You don't want to feel that loss. You don't want to feel that void. Next goes on to pain and guilt. And when I say pain, anybody who's grieved knows that it physically hurts. It hurts our souls. It hurts our minds. It hurts us to the point where your emotional pain becomes physical. You feel guilty from all the hurt. I like to give this example of pain from grief. There is a medical diagnosis called Takotsubo, and that is broken heart syndrome. And what it is the effects of such tragedy and pain and heartache from grief that it physically affects the pumping function of your heart. I've seen this personally, it is real, but it's just an excellent correlation of how much pain you're in from the grief that it physically affects you. It's so wearing on your body. So I just always give that example because I want people to really understand that the pain is real. You know, this pain that you're going through is real. So the third stages are anger and bargaining. The why me stage. Why is this happening? Why me? What did I do? What didn't I do? You're filled with rage because you're so hurt and you're in so much pain that you're angry at the situation, at what you could have done or what you didn't do. Fourth stage, after gathering these, the shock, the pain, the anger, is depression and reflection, because you're just so hurt and so sad and so withdrawn. And a lot of times people feel like nobody understands how they feel. And that's real, because this is everybody's own personal journey. Grief is your own personal journey. So wherever you are in your grief is where you should be. You cannot compare your grief to anybody else's. You're withdrawn, and part of it, I really believe that the depression comes from feeling like nobody understands how you feel. And I really stress getting out and meeting people and talking to people, because even though nobody has your same exact story, knowing that somebody has an idea of what your pain is really helpful when you're getting through this. The fifth stage after the depression, if you're able to pull yourself out of that, and may I mention, maybe you are not relating to the stages scientifically in order, and that's okay, because like I said, this is your journey, and wherever you are in your grief is fine. Or maybe you went through depression 3 times or 2 times and you came back out. It's okay. Whatever you're going through, whatever it takes you to get there is your story. That's your journey with this. So step 5 is the upward turn. So after you come out of this depression and you have these good days, and it feels good. It feels so good. You get that glimpse of hope. You know what? Maybe I can have good days. Some people will argue that grief stops here, and I disagree. I say that, that sense of enjoyment can take you back 2 stages in your grief, because even though you're happy and you've had that glimpse of hope and of happiness and light, you get the guilt back, because how can you feel this happiness when you're grieving, and because somebody else is not here, or because somebody's not a part of this, how can you have that happiness? So this is why I say it doesn't stop here, because the next step is step 6, reconstruction and working forward. I say this is why I say it keeps going, because if you go backwards in your grief and you have that pain and guilt and anger because you had those good days and you feel guilty for them, you need to learn how to live again. You need to learn how to reconstruct your life without this person or missing part or whatever it is, whatever it is you're grieving. You have to learn how to live again without that, so that you can enjoy a good day, so that you can keep moving forward, because you'll keep battling that and going back and forth if you're not enjoying all your good days. And that's, it's a process. That's part of the process. The hardest part about grief is learning to live again with your loss, because you're still here. So you still have to live again. But you have to learn to live again without that person. And that's the hardest part of challenging this. The biggest challenge in grief is that part. So going through these stages is so important. Acknowledging them and going through them is really important, so that you can go forward. So now you're reconstructing your life and you're working through, and things are getting better. And you're learning that you don't have to feel guilty about being happy, and you don't have to feel guilty about having good days, even though your loved one is not here. 7 takes you to acceptance and hope. So once you've learned all these processes and you see how far you've gotten in this journey, and how even if it takes you years, it could take you years. It's okay. It's okay. You've accepted your loss. You've accepted that it's time for you to try to live again. It took me years. It took me many years to live again. Sometimes I feel like I still don't, but it doesn't stop you from keeping and going, because you have to tell yourself that you're here, so you deserve this. So after you reconstructed and learn new things and learn how to deal with everything along the way that you've come, you now know what works and what doesn't work. You've accepted what you've gone through, and that makes you the strongest person in the world, whether they like it or not, or in your life. You are that strong person. And now you have hope for the future. And these are my 7 stages of grief. I believe that there are 7, and this is why. And I wish everybody well in their grief. I wish that there was something I could do for everybody. But I hope that if anybody has any questions or anything like that, they reach out to me. But these are my take on the 7 stages of grief.